These files. So if you're new to 3D printing, this is a way to prep your files so that you can either enlarge them and then split them if you're trying to do like a large file that you want to print out for, like, let's say a wall hanging, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you first some of the files that I've been playing around with. I'm going to be using three pieces. We're going to see three different sites today. So we're going to use Thingiverse to get our file, Tinkercad to edit that file, and then I'm using Cura to actually split the files because that works great for my 3D printer. So on Thingiverse, let's see if I can get to my collection. I actually got this file here. I'm going to show it to you. Okay. So this is the file that we're going to manipulate today. So it's just a wall sculpture. It's a 2D wall sculpture, so I want it to be a little bit thicker, and I want it to print larger than, I think it prints, the file downloads like a 6x6, and I want to print it a lot bigger than that. So I've already downloaded the file to my computer, and I have it, let's see, I have a folder for it, because this is where I'm tuning all of my files. So here is the file that we're going to be working with and that we're going to be splitting. We're going to scale it first and then we're going to split it. And so, so I already downloaded the file. I'm going to keep this, put this to the side. And let's go into Tinkercad. So Tinkercad is free software. You don't have to download it and install it. It's all web-based. And you can use it to edit 3D files, but also to create 3D files. So I've been playing around with creating some dog tags for my puppy and creating some NFC rings. I went live yesterday and showed you some NFC rings that I was creating. But today we're going to work on this. So I'm going to show you what the file looks like. And I'm going to walk through like how do you import. So we'll do this from scratch. But this is the file scaled and sliced already. So this is what I want to end up with, and I'm going to walk you through how I did this. So anything that has a color is active, so it's visible. Anything that is grayed out is not visible. It's considered a whole, which means it won't print. When you download, it won't download. But if it has a color, like if I add the colors to all of these, let me do that. These will then download as one large file, and I don't want it to download as one large file. So once I get it split, I have to make sure that the layers that I don't want to download are hidden and the layer that I want to download is visible. And again, to deactivate one of these, I'm just going to click on it, and the menu will come up over here under shape, and I'll just click whole, and whole just means that it hides it. And I'm going to show you how the whole is actually used also to do these slices, because we're going to be using this tool a lot. And so just by clicking on those slices I don't want to export, right there, make sure it's selected, I can just turn it into a whole. So now if I download this file, the only thing that's going to download is the orange. Even if the slices weren't on the mat but they were active and visible, when I downloaded the file, it would download the entire thing, even if it's on the work plane here on the mat. All right, so if you've never used Tinkercad, this is to edit. We're going to edit or build 3D objects. I like Tinkercad because it's simple to use. They use this with elementary school kids, so I figured it'd be easy enough to actually show here also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I did this process of scaling, and we're going to create a new file. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go to create new design. This is going to open up a new, what's called work plane for me. And Tinkercad, I'm just going to walk you through. So it has a home button. It has this fit all into view, which is the view we have right now. You can zoom it. You can zoom out. And then this button here is to switch it to a flat view. We don't want to switch it to a flat view. Up here you can rotate your work plane in Tinkercad to be able to see like the top, the bottom, the front when you're working with the file, when you have a file on there. Then you have these shapes over here, and you can create new 3D files using these shapes. This up here is a work plane, so you can switch how the work plane appears on your screen. There's a ruler. I'm actually going to drag the ruler over because I like to use the ruler. So I just place it. Notice it doesn't fill up the entire plane, but the ruler is here, and I can move it around by dragging on this little circle, this little red circle. I can move this ruler around. And so this is a great tool for you to use when you're working in Tinkercad. And then this here is just to add comments to whatever you are making in Tinkercad. So like if you're doing anything special, you want to add notes to it. So like think of this, if you're a programmer, you want to add comments to your work, the same here. And then up here we have import, export, and send to. We're going to be using the import and export files, and then there's more items up here. We're going to keep it on the work plane. These are different. There's a Lego view, and then this blocks view also. And the blocks is like Scratch. And then this blocks view also. And the blocks is like Scratch. Okay. So let's import our image here. So I clicked on import, and because I'm importing it from my desk, I'm just going to drag and drop my file on here. And I'm going to keep it in millimeters because that's how this file is measured. You can set it to inches, but then it kind of throws all of your items off. If you wanted to scale the project, you could scale it now here. And just change the dimensions on it, or change the dimensions on it, so you can do it by percentage or by changing the dimensions. I like to do it manually once I have it on the work plane so I can see what it looks like, because the work plane here is 12 by 12, and so I know that I can change my grid view here and say I want it larger, I want it smaller. And you'll just see here, it'll just, it makes the grid, it changes the grid view for you. So when you're playing around with your file, you'll have a way to calibrate how big your file is. So depending on the size of the file, it could take a few seconds or a few minutes for the file to import, depending on like the complexity of the file. But with Tinkercad, it's a great tool because 3D files can be tedious. Okay. So we have the file in Tinkercad, and I'm going to change the color just for the sake of this. So all of the file is now active. And if I click on the file here, you have to click on the space. Notice that the X and Y axes are have numbers here. It's set to 131.36 to 131.36, and then the height is set to 2, and these are all in millimeters. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this 170 because I just want to see what it's going to look like if I set it to 170. And then I'm going to set the height to 5. Oh, before I do that, let me show you the height on this thing. Oops. Okay. So the height is set to 2 millimeters here, and so you see the height. So I'm going to change the height to 5. Let's see what that does. So I like the height on this. So this is something that I would put on my wall once it's printed. And I'm going to print it in parts because I want to print it pretty large. And what I'll do is once I have, those parts, I'll print it. I would just then use either some UV resin or some glue to put all the parts together to create one larger project. So let's go over here. So this is, we've scaled it, right? And now you can scale it bigger if you want, but for the sake of this, I'm going to keep it at 170 by 170. Then what I'm going to do is once I have all the slices done, then I will make each slice 170 by 170. But I know this is the size that each of the slices are going to be. So I want to make sure that it fits in the mat. So that's the purpose of doing that right now, so I can make sure that the slice size that I want will fit on the mat. So now, okay, so let's just slice this. So I'm going to move this around here. All right, so I'm going to decide where I want to slice it. So I'm trying to get like a middle point. So this is the middle point up here, this little red dot up here. And so I want to get that on one of the lines so I can use that as kind of my point of reference. That's the center. Let's get a center line down here. I'm using my arrow keys right now to move this, to nudge it. Okay, so now this is my center line up here. Let me unclick it. This is my center line right here. So it's on the third one here. And then this is my center line right here. And so right now what you could do is, I mean, you can lay a piece up here. Let's see if I can find something that's good. There's different shapes in here that you can use. There's basic shapes. There's like these design starters. They have different structures and sceneries. These are all things that you could print fairly easily with little like effort. But I'm going to go back to the shapes, and I'm going to drop a triangle. I know this is weird. I'm going to drop it up here because this is my middle mark. I'm just using this as kind of a reference for myself. So I know that this is my point right here. And this is just me. You don't have to do this. This is just me because I will forget like which are my reference points. So I'm going to put this one here. So I know this is my other reference point. And then I'm just going to make it a hole. So if I forget to turn it off, it won't export. So now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to make 4 slices. I'm going to copy this file, the image file, 4 times because I already have it set to the size and the height that I want it. So I'm going to duplicate it 4 times or make 4 copies of it. And I'll move the other 3 copies off and you'll see why I do that. Maybe we'll just leave them on there so you can see also. So I'm going to do 1, 2, just stop, and then 3. So there are 3 copies on here. And you can't see the copies, but they're there. Trust me. Let me just make my plane a little bit bigger and I'll show you. So if I go here, oops, okay, select it, and I should just be able to move. Oh, I selected all the copies. I'll select 1. My arrow keys aren't working right now. There you go. So that's one of the copies. Okay, so there's 4 copies there. So what I'm going to do, I should have left that one out. I'm just going to move these out because I'm not going to use these right now. Whoops. Okay, let's set that one back to the size it was supposed to be at. Move one last one out. Okay, so we're going to manipulate all of these copies, and the way I'm going to do is because I'm going to use them to like as I'm cutting, you'll see how I use the reference. So let's zoom in onto the one that's on the mat here. So I need to cut this into 4 sections. So I have my markers so I know like where my center points are, and in order to cut this, you need to use the eraser tool. So I'm going to click on the block here, and this is a hole. So this is a hole. This block is an actual hole. So I'm going to click it and drag it on. And anywhere that this hole appears is going to be split. So I'm going to go to the line because that was our marker. And then I'm going to go down to our next marker, which is right here. Okay. Move it over a little because I threw it off. Okay. And then I'm going to extend it so I cover all of the red that I want to delete from here. So now this portion where the block is over is going to actually be cut off. So what I could do is, for the sake of time, instead of doing it 3 times, I can do it twice and just extend this down before I cut it completely. So I'm going to extend it down because I want this gone. And then I'm going to do it one more time, but I'm going to do it for the bottom down here. And we're going to go, where was our marker? Right here. I'm going to extend that. And so anything that is covered by the gray holes now will disappear. So now what I need to do is I need to select it all. And not this guy here. Make sure my other guy isn't selected. Okay. And then I'm just gonna connect them. So I'm gonna group them. And now wherever those gray boxes were, those holes, those are gonna be removed from the image or from the 3D object. And then I'll be left with just the one section. And that it'll take a few seconds for it to work. So like if you're doing this, don't panic, because it's just a lot of information it's trying to go through. Okay, so now you see we have our one slice. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this slice. Let's see. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. Now why didn't this slice, oh, I see what I did. So there's still a tiny piece here that I need to get rid of. So let's do that. Let's add a hole here. I'm just going to cover it all the way up. Let's intersect it. Let's select it all. You need to make sure all your pieces are gone because it will. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that one. This doesn't like it. Okay, let's get our little piece in here. Okay, we're going to have to undo it just because is seeing it as one group. Let's just do this. Let's bring this down. It's picky. It's persnickety. Okay. And now let's select it all. And let's intersect it again. And so with this, to me, this is cathartic, guys, working on stuff like this. Just because it's, gives me something to like kind of think through. And so one thing that I just did, I'm going to undo this, is that I went over my marker here. I caught that too late. And go back. And the good thing is you can just Control Z to undo. And it brings everything back to original. So it's like the same commands you use like for Word or any kind of doc editing. You can use kind of those same commands. Control C works also. Control P works. Let's do it again. Let's see if I did it right this time. Let's see if we're left with just that one corner. That's what we're aiming for, is just that one corner. Okay, so now the block, so now we're left with a true block. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to resize this to 170 by 170, because I know it'll fit on my map because we tested that, right? And there we go. So this would be one file that I would then export. So the next thing we need to do, let's say I wanted to export that. I need to hide these other files. So let me click these so I can hide them. Okay, come on, select, and then we can hide these. So now the only thing that would export is this piece right here. So to export it, you give it a name. So I'm just going to call this Astro. This is top left. So make sure to name your segments also, so you know what the heck you're doing. The other thing I'll do is I'll add a comment to it so I know what segment it is. I'll put it on the space, and I'll put Astro top left here, because I'm going to keep it on here, but then I'm going to export it. You want to hide your comment also, just for the sake of just being able to make sure that nothing janky happens, and then you can just export it. I'm going to export mine as an STL file, and it'll prep your file and it'll download just that one part. So it'll take a second for it to download. And you're going to follow that same procedure with the other three parts. And you just want to make sure that you line up, find your center marks where you had it, line it up to those center marks. You might need to eyeball a little bit to make sure that you're getting the right parts. So when you print them, you'll be able to connect it easily. It's okay if you overlap a little because you can actually just sand down any kind of overlap to make the file the right size. So we have that one segment done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it. I'm going to move it over, and then I'm going to turn it off. So I'm going to, remember, turn it off by hiding it, right? Making it a hole. So now we can take another copy here. I'm going to place it. Let's zoom in a little. Okay. So this guy was a little bit higher. So we're going to move him here. So this is where having the markers comes into play, because now I know where my center is and I know where it needs to be for my that middle line. So I get the same, so that I get accurate cuts when I'm splitting this, right? So this is where it was on the original. Let's just make sure here. Yeah, that's on the line. Okay. I'm just playing around with it. Now I'm going to turn it back on. So now it's colored, so it's on again. So now I can make a cut on this. And we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to grab a block. We're going to put the block over, let's do it over here. Stella just busted into the room, so she must want something. Okay. What's the matter, Stella? Okay, and we're going to cut this here. And let's do it in segments this time, just so I can show you. So I can cut here and just select all and then group it. And again, this can be tedious, right, guys? But I think that if you want to make sure that you get the cut that you want, if you want to print some large items, this is really important. And so also the settings on your printer are going to be important to make sure that your print actually, prints correctly. Okay, so now we did the bottom part, and now we're going to get rid of this side because this is the side that we already made. So I'm going to grab a cube here, my last one, and I'm going to bring it down and over to the line right there. Okay, and then we're just going to select, and you can you follow any method that works for you, but what we're doing is just splitting this file into 4 so that I can enlarge each section and end up with one big file, one that I can glue together. So I'll have 4 parts that I can either glue together or use I'm thinking about using UV resin to actually put them together. So now I'm going to change this to 170 and this one to 170 and move it down here. So now the cool thing is that let me zoom out. So now if I bring this file down here, I'm going to show you, they should connect fairly well. And you may have some overlap, which is fine because you can actually cut that out, and that's why you have the reference. So I see that on this file, I might need to cut out the circle here. So let's just see how much we need to cut out. Let's drag it over. That's a slow drag. Let me increase my, okay. All right, so it looks like I gotta, oops. So over here on your grid, you can change the side of your grid, the size of your grid, and it kind of helps you figure out like where your, how fast your cursor moves when you're using the arrow keys. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the block over here. Now I left the segment that I'm mapping up to. I left that one off, right? So it's hidden. So when I do this, and it will only impact the segment that I selected. And so now I should end up with a good print, like a, something that butts up to each other pretty well. All right. So there you go. All right, that looks decent, right? Might have cut off a little too much for the hole, but I can go back, like you can go back this way. No, we don't want to do that. Let's go back that way. Okay. Let's click on this one. And let's undo. Just want to see what that hole looks like. Yeah, so it looks like we got to keep part of this. Let's do that. A lot of this, guys, this is not fast work. It's not anything where you're gonna be like, you know, 1, 2, 3. In some cases it might be, right? This file is a little bit more detailed, and so you want to take your time with it to make sure that you're getting good cuts and that what you're gonna end up with is a good product. So what we're doing is we're enlarging this one file, making it big so I can have a wall piece, but cutting it into 4 segments and then enlarging each of those segments to make that big file. So let's see. Oh, I didn't hit group. Ooh, don't know what happened there. Hold on. That was bad. Did I change this to? Hold on. Oh, I turned my layer off. I didn't mean to turn my layer off. Okay, there we go. See? Not paying attention to what I'm doing. Click here, group. Okay. And I think Stella's hungry, guys, because she's licky right now. Okay. So now, okay, there we go. So that looks better, right? So now it butts up really good. And we'll do this same process for the other segments to ensure that we end up with something that looks really cool. So I'm going to go back and show you guys one that I already did. Right here. And again, Tinkercad is free. You don't have to install anything. It's a great tool to learn with. So if you're just starting out with 3D printing, they have some tutorials that you can go through. But, you know, I think for also working with files, like I'm on a Mac, and so there are some great tools out there that you can use to actually manipulate your 3D objects and to split them and stuff like that. But I'm on a Mac, and so like some of the better products are made for Windows. So like Mesh Mixer is a good one, but again, it's a Windows product, so I can't use it on Mac, and I don't have a Windows computer. I'm just purely a Mac user. And overall, you know, let me just show you here. This is what you want to end up with. See if I can line these up really good. And then I'm going to turn on the colors so you guys can see. Turn on the colors. I don't know how I lined them up originally, but let's see. Okay, so these are the 4 segments, and I use that same process that I just showed you to divide this into 4 segments that I then bring into Cura. I'm happy to do more segments on Tinkercad, and we can, you know, how do you build something in Tinkercad from scratch, and then, or how do you manipulate additional files in Tinkercad. You know, we can probably do a bust and, you know, figure out how to add lights to the bust, meaning how to add the holes to ensure that you can add like LED lights to the bust. I have a Darth Vader bust that I was going to do that with. Let me just show you guys that really quick. Again, I didn't make the Darth Vader. These are files that I got. I think this one I got on Thingiverse also. This is 2 parts. I was just playing around. So in this one, I think I'm going to add LED lights to the eyes and probably to the chest plate. And this is something I would actually thinking about printing for Oscar, my partner, so he can have it in his office, and just making him like a cool bust in this. I would print this all in black and then add the LEDs to add some interest to it. So guys, that's it. I hope that you found this useful. If you have questions about this, post them. Know that I am not saying that I am an expert in 3D printing. I am sharing with you the things that I do know and the things that have worked for me. And, you know, I hope that this would work for you also. And if you're interested, yeah, let me know.